And then we'll move on to reports, and we have two finance reports from Mark DeShield.
Thank you, Mayor. I will start with my first report, which is concerning municipal fee and service charge, a new policy. This is an outgrowth of development of our 5-year forecast, and one of the things that we realized in putting together our 5-year forecast, and that's a need for the review on a regular basis and a consistent basis of our fees and charges. So basically what I'm presenting to council is a policy that deals with that issue. That policy indicates that each department will evaluate their current fees, charges, permits on an annual basis, and this to become part of the budget process by December 31st of each year. Each department will evaluate their fees and then make a recommendation along with their budget submission to the council on the fees to either, one, the fees remain the same or any recommended changes to the fees. In doing that process, what we try to look at is the best ways and kind of give some framework for developing that policies. One, we want to make sure that it's done on a regular basis. Two, all these fees will, when they're presented to you, will be benchmarked against other fees and charges to comparable neighboring jurisdictions. The next thing that would happen is that we want to make sure and an evaluation is done to determine whether those fees and charges complement the municipality's policies and long-range policies. For example, if we are promoting certain policies or goals of the township, that those fees actually reflect or promote those goals or policies. So what we will do for the first time this year is provide you with that those recommendations. And the final piece is really to take a look at when they are services that are provided on a community-wide basis versus it being a public benefit, but more of a, when it's a private benefit versus a community-wide benefit, that we look at those fees very closely in determining, in that case, we should ensure that we recover, if not all, most of the fees associated with the cost for that services. So that's what will be provided to council on a daily basis. This will be done for the current fund, and also the sewer and parking utilities. In those cases, we will recover the full cost of the services provided. So that's the one, and you will see that as part of the budget process this year. Next thing I wanted to do is to give you an update on...
Mr. DeShield,
Mr. Simon?
One request on that topic. You've got this spreadsheet right now which has all of the fees by topic.
Yes.
When you actually do the exercise, if you can also include their annual contribution to the budget, it would be helpful. Right? I mean, it's hard to know how to size these and prioritize these when we're looking at them in its current form.
Right. When you receive those, you will get that full analysis. Just wanted to give you an idea of what are the different fees and charges that we're referring to.
Ms. Butler, did you have a comment too?
Well, on some of these fees, Mark, when you talk about the goals of the community or the goals of the town, some of these things may be in conflict, but aren't we limited by what we can charge, what fees we can set? I mean, they're not supposed to be revenue generating, are they? I thought they couldn't be a... we don't want to lose money on them, but we can't use them as a source of, like a profit center either.
Really, what you have to do is, for example, one of the things you want to look at a fee, if you're providing a service where you want to promote this service to the larger population, it may be more important that you actually get people to, for example, a permit. You want them to, and I'll use a smoke detector. It may be more important to encourage people to abide by that versus generating or recovering the fees for that.
Okay.
That's really what we're looking for in the equity issue. Next thing we want to talk about is one of the goals that Council identified in 2016 was the preparation of a 5-year financial forecast, and we've been working to review the revenues and expenditures What we did is take a look back to 2012 and develop a preliminary forecast. And at this time, what I'm going to be providing council is just an update. The Finance Committee wants to take a look at that, and there's been some suggestions of additional ways to kind of take a look at this analysis, so I will share the full analysis when we get to that point. But I think it's important that we begin to start thinking about the budget process and the 5-year plan. So I wanted to give you an idea of where we are and give you some ideas of some of the trends that I've seen so far. So what we did, we took a look at the current fund revenues and expenditures and made a forecast. And the other thing that's important to note, what we're attempting to do here in developing this 5-year financial forecast is really to develop a planning tool. We're not trying to predict it's in the packet.
It's in the packet online. Well, it is, for viewers, it is in the packet online. If you go online to the agenda, it's in the publicly available packet.
I'm just going to get back to my place. It's important to note the purpose of the 5-year forecast is just to be a planning tool, and it's really to show us the future trends so that we can develop strategies to deal with those future trends. Versus, it's important, I don't want people to understand, this is not to predict what's actually going to happen. It's really as a tool that we use on an annual basis to help us develop strategies moving forward. So that's an important note. The first step in developing this forecast, we took a look at all the prior years' expenditures and revenues. And one of the limiting factors in developing this plan this cycle is there is limited consolidated history on the revenues and expenditures because of consolidation. So it's very difficult in order to kind of predict using those data and using forecasting tools to really predict the future. So a lot of what we've done here is really looked at those, the forecast and used our best judgment to determine the forecast moving forward. That being the case, and what I will share with you this evening, and again, as I said before, we want to review that full plan with the Finance Subcommittee before, and I will present the whole plan to everyone. What I wanted to give people is really a outlook for 2017 and what are the major pressures both from expenditures and the downward pressures for revenue. And if we look at those, here's the trends that we're going to see in 2017. One, health insurance, which is always a pressure in terms of increasing our expenditures. The other one, which is going to be significant, is the capital improvement fund. Over the last 2 years, we've reduced our capital improvement fund in the budget because we had reserves in our reserves that would cover these costs, and the capital improvement fund is our down payments required for the capital expenditures that we do on an annual basis. That is going to go up significantly this year because our revenues have been depleted. The next issue that's always pushing in our budget is both PFRS and PERS, which is the pension funds. And again, we expect those to, and again, be a large portion of the increases in our budget. At the same time as looking at these, and we expect those at roughly around an $830,000 increases in just those areas. At the same time that is happening, we do see downward pressures on our revenues, and we spoke about this at the last year at budget time. There are the reserves for debt service. That reserve is depleting. Over the next 2 years, that reserve will go from $1.4 million to zero. We're going to take a $750,000 hit this year in that reserve, and next year that reserve goes away completely. And then the final piece is under the assessment trust. That revenues are also going down this year. So we will see both revenue pushes on our revenues and decreases in revenues this year, and the revenue portion is going to be about $1.1 million. That being said, it's going to be important as we look forward into this budget that we begin early in preparing the budget and looking on the revenue side. Some of the areas that I think that we need to concentrate on is on the revenue side, the use of our surplus, how we deal with using surplus to help mitigate these pressures that we see. Two, looking at the increased use of utility surplus in particular. We may want to look at in terms of the parking utility and using surpluses from the parking utility. And then also, as we talked about earlier, is really evaluating other sources of revenues within the budget. And on the expenditure side, as always, really managing our health care costs. We've started that process earlier this year, and I've reviewed with the Personnel Committee, looking at the possibilities of what savings we can occur. We'll continue to manage that piece. The other thing, as usual, managing all of our other expenses throughout the budget. And finally, I think one of the big pieces we really need to look at, and we'll be talking about that more at the next meeting, which is the capital plan and the impacts of the capital plan. As I said before, the capital improvement fund will be one of the main pressures on our budget this year. But that doesn't account for if we want to look at the capital fund and if there's additional expenditures that we're looking at in the future. Finally, what I wanted to talk to councils about at our next meeting, I will be presenting to council the budget schedule for 2017, which we're going to try to get a head start on that process, and we'll go through that process at the next meeting. We have a finance committee. Hopefully, we can get that finalized and set up so we'll be reviewing both the 5-year plan, which will present to council, plus going over the budget schedule for 2017.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions for Mark? Okay. All right, well, to be continued at the next meeting then.
Thank you.
Thank you.